Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar regarding meaningful gifting, how to make an impact on your community. I'm Courtney. I work at Sheryll Law PC, along with Jay Sheryll, the managing attorney. And today we're going to go into some strategies and some options regarding gifting. We're going to also have a Q&A that is available at the end, and you can put any of your questions in the Q&A section. And we look forward to helping you address some of your charitable gifting questions. Without further ado, here's Jay Sheryll. He's the managing attorney here at Sheryll Law PC, located in Riverhead.
Thank you, Courtney. Welcome, everybody. So glad everybody's joining us today. We put on this idea of this webinar and wanting to get it done before Thanksgiving here, because next Tuesday is Giving Tuesday. And so we really thought about the best way to talk to people about the ways that they can give money as part of their estate planning, so that they can leave a legacy behind and effectuate the change in the world that they want. So that's what we're going to tackle in this webinar. It's jam-packed of information, and it's really meant to give you a 30,000-foot view about each of the major ways that you can begin to start making charitable gifts of your assets to leave that legacy behind. So just a quick disclaimer is what we're not going to be able to do in this format is to provide you with legal advice. The information that we're going to be giving you today is legal information. And then really the difference is this is that 30,000-foot view. And as you'll see, the options that you have are numerous. You might leave with your head spinning about some different ideas and which is the best fit. And quite frankly, that's the point. We don't want anybody leaving here doing any of these things necessarily, because the right tool is going to be that tool which makes you most comfortable and also accomplishes each of your objectives. So really, in order to do that, you have to take things a step further. So nothing in here is going to be creating a attorney-client relationship naturally as well. Insurance company makes us get that out of the way. So here's just a couple housekeeping issues. Everybody is in listen and view only mode, which means that you're watching the webinar. You are not mic'd up, and we cannot see you. Nobody in the call can see you. The webinar is being recorded, and we will be answering questions at the end through the Q&A. So if you'll just do me a favor, as you go, do not hesitate to go ahead and put those questions into the Q&A, and we will then answer them. Courtney will pull them and moderate them at the end. So we're going to save those questions to the end so we can get through the materials and come back and answer your questions. But so you don't forget, as we're going through it, if you have a question that arises, you can just go ahead and put that into the Q&A as we go. So before we dive into it, let me just tell you a little bit about who we are and who I am. So our firm, Sheryll Law PC, is an estate planning, elder law, trust and estates firm on the East End of Long Island. And we help people protect and preserve their assets so they can leave a legacy behind that they deserve and they desire. I created the firm about 5 years ago with that vision in mind, and have been blessed to help hundreds of families accomplish just that through their own objectives, through their own lens, their own view of the world, and help them accomplish exactly that mission. And so, why did I get started in this? And this is because everything is so personal. This is myself and my wife when we were kids. We go a long way back. This was at a wedding, and it makes me think about this money that we have, not just for these charitable distributions that we're talking about today, but the money that we've worked hard for. We should plan and protect, because it leaves the ability to leave this money behind for these children, for our loved ones, for the weddings, for the birthdays, for the houses, for the vacations, and also for the charitable distributions that we're going to talk about today. And the reason I work with families so closely is because I love my family. This is my wife, and there's one of our children there. And this is when I was a traffic control officer. Before I had any idea that I wanted to become a lawyer, I went back to school to study my criminal justice degree, and I ended up taking a criminal law class and just absolutely loved it. And flash forward to today, that's exactly how I ended up in the seat that I'm in, because I just followed my love for studying the law and problem solving, finding unique solutions for people. Married my wife, love of my life. This is my first child, Eliana. and really have a really keen sense of charitable giving and how much that can help. And that's from my second daughter, Lily. She was born premature at 31 weeks, and a charitable organization, actually a couple of them, but namely the March of Dimes, was instrumental in helping my wife and I through this difficult time. Lily was born anemic. She was born just the size of my hand. She almost didn't make it. And we spent the next 2 months day in and day out at the hospital. And if it wasn't for the March of Dimes, it would have been a very, very difficult way to get through this process. They were able to connect us with support, with other families going through the same things, helping us see beyond those initial 10, 12 weeks that we couldn't see. And I've given back to them both through time and money. And that's so important because there's so many other people in this world that need help. Sometimes it may be an experience that we went through and we just need to reach back and help someone else along through that experience. Or maybe it's just something, a cause that's near and dear to our hearts that really impacts that legacy that we want to leave behind. So naturally, we can be giving of our time. We could also be giving of our money. And that's going to be the topic of today's talk. This is everybody today or a few years back at this point. Might have to update the slide here. But that's Lily in the back there. And you can see she is doing fantastic. But look, why I'm so passionate in what we do is because we're all about options here at Sheryll Law PC, because the laws are complicated and not knowing them is a disadvantage. That's really the idea behind so much of what we do, especially in this avenue, in this format that we're doing for you today, is to let you know that you have options. Because if you don't know them, you're at a grand disadvantage. At the end of the day, these are the rules of our society, the rules of the game, so to speak. And if we don't play by the rules and we don't know the rules, then we're at a disadvantage in the game. And also, incorrect information can be found everywhere. You'll find more incorrect information than you'll find correct information. Even more dangerous than the incorrect information is the overload of information. And because of this, people either fail to act because they just get information overload and don't know what to do next, or they take some sort of stupid decision, something they've read about online or heard about from someone else, and don't really think through the options and the consequences of doing so. So let's frame that into today's talk and what we're going to cover. I just want to frame this for you in that charitable giving is not dead. We may be talking about estate planning, no pun intended. But according to givingusa.com, in 2018, individuals gave an estimated $292 billion to charities. That's an amazing, amazing figure. This is how we can choose to spend or donate money to support a cause of our liking, of something that we want to impart on the world. And many people, and some of the things we'll talk about today, are to help with not only making these distributions, but also facing some tax benefits of doing so. And I think a lot of people feel that they would rather choose and maybe even control how their money gets used and picks those causes rather than it be just taxed and go to the government, for example, where it may be just a huge black hole where we just don't know where that money is being spent or if it's even being spent wisely. So, many people give because they believe very strongly in a cause or an organization. And that should be one very, very big reason to make donations. But as you'll see in the slide, that these gifts can also have some great tax benefits that we can see as well. They can reduce your yearly income tax bill. They can also remove value from your overall estate for the purposes of estate taxes. So if you are considering making a donation, but you're unsure of your options or how to proceed, then this webinar will help you. So here's the ways that we're going to talk about how to give. So, and we'll talk about each one independently and then save some Q&A for the end. First, we have this class of charitable trusts. Okay, should pull up my nifty spotlight here. So we have our charitable trusts, and that's really broken down into 4 different types of trusts that really fit into these 2 major classes. One is a charitable remainder trust, and the other is a charitable lead trust. Then we also will talk about gift annuities and how those can fit into your plan. And then next, for the client that wants to maximize control over their charitable distributions, we'll talk about the private foundation and the donor advised fund. And then lastly, we'll talk about outright gifts. And there's two ways that we can really make outright gifts. We'll talk about one way is to make those gifts during lifetime. And then lastly, we'll talk about how we can make those gifts in our estate plans through our wills and our trusts. So first, let's talk about the charitable remainder trust. So the charitable remainder trust is a tax-exempt, irrevocable trust. This has the benefit of reducing your taxable income now. We'll go through some information about this, but generally speaking, if I make a donation to a charitable remainder trust, I get a present income tax deduction in the year that I make that distribution. I also can save on capital gains taxes for sales of highly appreciated assets. And it'll also reduce the estate taxes that I might be subject to, because the net estate that I have that would be subject to that tax is reduced because of the gift that I've made to this charitable remainder trust. And the same goes for gift taxes. These are excluded from gift taxes. And we'll talk about the income stream options, and that's because each one has a different income stream option within this of the two different categories. But the net sum is that it does generate an income stream from the trust that will be either applied to a charity or to you as the creator of the trust. So first, let's talk about how this charitable remainder trust works. So first, you fund the trust with appreciated property, real estate, stocks, anything that's really appreciated in value, because that's where you get the most tax benefit for this transfer. You then can keep the right to receive either a set amount per year, what we call an annuity, or a fixed percentage of the value of the trust for the initial term, either for a term of years or for your life, what we call a unit trust. We always like acronyms in the estate plan, so we call charitable remainder annuity trusts as CRATs, C-R-A-T, if you've ever heard that term, or charitable remainder unit trusts, which is why we use the acronym CRUT, which isn't much better. And so the only difference there is how you structure that income stream. You're getting the income stream, or a non-charitable beneficiary of your choosing is getting that income stream. And it can either be that set amount of money, a fixed dollar amount per year, or a percentage of the value of the trust. Now, you can also give this right of income to a beneficiary, a non-charitable beneficiary of your own choosing. Okay. Then after the initial term, the amount remaining in the trust is distributed to a charity named in the trust. So you name a charity, and at the end of that term, then the remaining amount in the trust goes to the charity. Now, how you structure the term is going to be dependent on your present tax situation, tax brackets, interest rates, and a number is calculated that accomplishes your objective. You can play with the numbers but it's going to change the amount of the deductions that you might get, or the amount of the reduction that you might get from your estate tax. And ultimately, when you do this, you receive an immediate charitable income tax deduction while retaining a current interest to receive an annuity from the trust, whether that be a percentage or that flat fee, that flat amount every year. You also avoid having to pay the capital gains tax on the sale of the appreciated property, so long as it is that the trustee of the charitable remainder trust is selling the property. And so, and I'll give you an illustration of how this looks and how we can reduce this to some dollars and cents. And lastly, by placing the appreciated property inside the irrevocable trust, you remove the property from your estate, reducing your potential estate taxes, meaning it's not going to be subject to your estate tax upon your death. And so we give you a little hypothetical. So years ago, Max and Jane Havenuffs, ages 65 and 63, purchased some stocks for $100,000. And now that stock is worth $500,000. Their goal is to sell it and generate some retirement income. Now, if they sell the stock, they would have gain of $400,000. We calculate that by using the current value, now worth 500, less the purchase value, the cost, 100,000. 500 minus 100,000 equals the 400,000 gain. And they'd have to pay $60,000 in federal capital gains tax. 15% capital gains rate applied to that $400,000 gain. So if I take that 500,000 now that they had, and I take away that 60,000, that leaves them with a net of 440,000. If they take that money and reinvest it and earn it in a 5% return, that would provide them with $22,000 in annual income. Now, multiplying that by their life expectancy of 26 years, that would give them a total lifetime income before taxes of $572,000. Because they still own the assets, all right, they're not going to get any protection from creditors, and there is no charitable income tax deduction available. And it will also be part of their taxable estate when they pass away because they retain ownership of the asset. Now, instead, what if the Havenuffs used a charitable remainder trust? Now, let me show you. If they transfer the stock to a charitable remainder trust instead, the Havenuffs can take an immediate charitable income tax deduction of approximately $160,000. Okay? Because they are in a 35% tax bracket, this will reduce their current federal income taxes by $56,000. The trustee will then sell the stock for the same amount. So the property, the appreciated property, has been transferred to this trust and then sold from the trust. Because the trust is a charitable remainder trust, it's exempt from capital gains tax, and the full $500,000 is available to reinvest. We don't need to pay the income taxes on that capital gains, right? The capital gains rate. The same 5% return then will produce $25,000 in annual income, which before taxes will total $650,000 received in income over their lifetime. That's $78,000 more in income than if the Havenuffs had sold the stocks themselves and invested it. And further, because the assets are in an irrevocable trust, they are protected from creditors and removed from the taxable estate of the person that created it, the Havenuffs. So now they get an estate tax deduction. You can see how we can leverage these gifts. And so we can, everything else we talk about from here is going to be just some other play on income tax savings, control over assets, return of assets at the end of the term of the trust or the strategy, and estate and gift taxes. So this is going to be one where we're going to end up passing off control. And yes, the balance of what we gave to the trust is going to go to the charity, and we're going to get this benefit for doing so and doing it instead of just at death, for example, as part of our estate plan. The other type of charitable trust I want to talk to you about is the charitable lead trust. It's very similar. The same analysis works to see how this could value and be a value to you and help your family. But this just changes around the way that the interest works. So like a charitable remainder trust, you're going to fund this trust with property that has grown in value. But in a charitable lead trust, the charity is the one that receives the income stream for a term of years. So it looks like this. You establish the irrevocable trust by funding it with money or a property that's appreciated. Now, we can get the most capital gains benefits, savings, by using appreciated assets, although it's not required. And then charity of your choosing receives either a set amount of money per year, we call it an annuity trust, or a CLAT, charitable lead annuity trust, or a fixed percentage of the value of the trust, a unit trust, or we call a CLUT, a charitable lead unit trust. And that's for a specified term, just like the charitable remainder trust. Now, at the end of the initial term, the remainder pays back to you or to your non-charitable beneficiary that's named in the trust. So this is a way of getting similar tax benefits, benefiting the charity of your choosing, but then having the money paid back to your beneficiaries instead of paid to the charity, like we talked about with the charitable remainder trust. So this can be an excellent way to benefit a charity, get those tax benefits, but still be able to provide for your loved ones. The benefit of this type of trust is that the grantor will receive a deduction. The grantor is you, right? That you will receive a deduction equal to the charitable gift that is made. Now, this offsets the gift or estate tax that is due if there is any remainder distributed to a beneficiary. So this can provide estate tax planning by discounting the value of the gift that's made to this beneficiary. If you had gone directly to the beneficiary, this gift would have been fully taxable, and through this mechanism could provide for the charity and then also get that discounted valuation for the gift and estate tax. Next, let's talk about the gift annuity. And here, what you do is you enter into a contract with the charity of your choosing. According to the terms of this contract, you agree to make a donation, and the charity agrees to pay you a fixed annuity monthly or quarterly for the remainder of your life. This can also be structured on joint lives for clients that are married. So if you're married, this can be for the rest of both of your lives. You then make that donation pursuant to the contract. Then the charity invests your donation and pays you the annuity according to the terms of the contract. The investments generate the income then goes to you. And upon your death, or upon the second of you, if you're doing this planning for a married couple and are married, the charity then keeps the remainder of the investment. The benefit here is you receive a partial income tax deduction when the gift is made. It is only a partial deduction because you are receiving part of your donation back in the form of an annuity. So it's not a dollar for dollar income tax deduction like we talked about with the first two options, because you're getting this annuity right back. It's important also to note that because this is a contract entered into you and a particular charity, if you want to donate more than one charity, you're going to need to do multiple gift annuities. Okay, you have to have separate gift annuities for an individual charity. So that could be one of the downsides of the gift annuity, is that you'll have to do one separately for each individual charity that you want to make a distribution to. Another option we have, and this is one where control over the assets might be one of our major objectives. And if that's the case, and then a private foundation is going to give us the maximum amount of control that we can with how the monies are spent. And the way that this works is that you form an entity to carry out your charitable purpose. Now, this can be done either by a trustee under a trust agreement, or as a corporation and by a board of directors. You're creating an entity that's going to carry out your charitable purpose. And this can also continue well into the future after you pass away, because you're creating a trustee who can carry on this after you pass away, as well, or as a board of directors as part of this corporation. Now, you are able to control the operations of the private foundation. You can choose who will be in charge of the private foundation, who will be the successors, which charities will receive money, and how much they will receive. Notice that the private foundation doesn't necessarily need to be a charity. Yes, it is a charitable corporation, but it does not need to be a charity. You don't need to carry on the actual activities. We can choose how to donate the money and to which charities will actually receive it. So you and your family make donations to the private foundation. You can do this annually. You get the present income tax deduction for that. Now, the foundations either distribute the money to other charitable organizations, or they can actually fund their own charitable projects. So you see how this can be that option that provides so much control to where you really want to make sure that your legacy is protected and preserved in the way that you see fit. Now, so long as the proper formalities are followed, and that's key, so long as those formalities are followed when operating the private foundation, you'll receive an income tax deduction for the donations made to the private foundation. You will also avoid the capital gains tax if appreciated property is used to make the donation and then sold from either the trust or the corporation. If you were to sell the property and then donate the money, you'd have to pay that tax, like we talked about with the charitable remainder trust. But if the private foundation sells the appreciated property instead, it won't have to pay that capital gains tax. And lastly, because the property is now owned by the private foundation, it's no longer included in your estate for estate tax purposes. So this has the effect of reducing your estate tax liability. Next is our donor advised fund. And I'm going to talk to you about this first, but I want to remind you also at the end that this can be layered and structured with some of the other options that we talked about so far. So how does a donor advised fund works? So the way this works is you create a fund, okay, and deposit it with the charitable or deposit your charitable contribution. Because you create this fund and you then deposit your charitable contribution in that fund. Now, as the owner of the fund, a sponsoring organization, okay, we have to find a fund, it's a DAF, a donor advised fund. The sponsoring organization is a charitable organization, is in charge of managing the money. So we don't necessarily have that direct control or management like we would with the private foundation, but where we don't have quite enough to justify the creation and the cost of the upkeep and ongoing management of the private foundation, this can be a great solution. Then, because this is why, because the sponsoring organization will manage the money, but then you get to advise the sponsoring organization as to which charitable organizations should receive the money from your fund. Okay, so by using this strategy, you are eligible to take the income tax deduction for this charitable gift as soon as it is deposited into the fund, even if the money is not ultimately distributed to a charity for a while, for it doesn't have to be that year. Okay, this could be great for the use of retirement assets, for example. Same thing with the charitable remainder trust, and the charitable lead trust can be great for retirement assets because we can make a lump sum contribution and get the income tax benefit, even though the actual distributions to the charity are spread out over time. And lastly, placing the assets into the fund removes the ownership from your estate and eliminates them from being included in your estate for estate tax purposes. Now, this strategy, this donor advised fund, does not need to be used just all by itself. It can also be the lead beneficiary of your charitable lead trust. So that piece of that charity, for example, the charitable lead trust, as a reminder, is getting this income stream over your life or a term of years that's selected. And that income stream can be then given to this fund, get the income tax benefit for that, even though the money hasn't gone through and been used to a charity. This is a nice hybrid here. It gets to be structured with some different options, and there's a good way to structure something where it's creating a private foundation just is not the best solution. Now, let's talk about some other ways. Everything we talked about so far were ways that we could retain some income rights and get some income tax deductions. But this is probably the easiest way to simplify things, is to make an outright gift to a charity. And so the way this works is that you give cash, stocks, real estate, etc., anything directly to the charity during your lifetime. No funds, no foundations, no trusts involved, and the charity accepts the donation. Now, the reason this is nice is because it simplifies some of the ongoing costs of the structure and management of all of the other options, which can be well worth it for the right client. But where it's not right, we're not out of options. We just make this donation, and you still get some benefits of this. This strategy allows you to receive an income tax deduction for the year the gift was made, and it also removes the asset from your estate for estate tax purposes. What we're losing here is that right to get income back, essentially. So we part with this money, and that's okay if that is what fits your objectives. Lastly, is we can make gifts through our will or trust, through our estate plan. This is another easy way to donate to charity. The way that this works is you just leave stocks, cash, real estate, specific distributions, bequests, legacies, whatever you want to call them, right, in your will or in your trust. It can be done through either. The benefit of a will is that we can make these wishes known in our will. If we don't have a will at all, those wishes are not known, and the intestate laws in the state of New York do not provide for any charitable distribution. And then we can also, if we like, the benefit of a trust here, and this is typically a revocable trust, or could even be an irrevocable trust of some other design, is to avoid probate. So this can be done without the need of having to go to court and probating the will. The trust can operate outside of the reaches of the court, save some filing fees, keep our wishes private, get them out of the public domain and into our private agreement instead of this public operative will that we have to rely on. This strategy will allow you to receive an income tax deduction. This would not allow an income tax deduction. It will remove the asset from your estate from estate tax purposes if it's structured the right way. But ultimately, this is a way where we're just looking to make a simple distribution. Maybe I just want to leave a bequest to a charity of my choosing. I'm not as concerned about the estate taxes. I'm not as concerned about the gift taxes. I'm not as concerned about any of the other leveraged options we have, and can be a great fit for those clients. And that charity then gets that distribution, and you have left a legacy. So really the question becomes, what should you do next? And the answer is, you should think about it. We have an option to be able to help people kind of digest this information. Sit down, go through your objectives, go through exactly what it is you're looking for, decide how much you can give. Is it a distribution of $50,000, or are we talking about 3 million or 10 million or more? Talk about what's the best way of structuring that to meet your needs, also providing that legacy for your loved ones as well. Talk about how to fund that, from what assets would make the most sense, because if we're going to make the gift, we can make the gift from a number of different assets and maximize the benefit that we can get for doing so. And meet with a financial advisor as well to be able to speak to you about these options, so that way they understand what you're looking for and can help advise you through those basis decisions and help advise you through those really important, intricate, intimate decisions that need to be made. So if you're considering on how to make a donation, but you're really unsure how to proceed, we're here to help. This will be a 1-hour meeting, either virtual or in person, where we will be able to meet with you, interview you about those specific concerns and objectives, those specific organizations, and those specific ideas and causes that you want to support. And we will help craft a plan utilizing any of these charitable planning tools that best fit your situation and help you achieve your goals. Talk before hitting the button. At the end of our time together, we will you'll know your options, and you'll be informed about what to do next. You can either choose to hire us to implement that plan, or maybe it's a plan that stretches on for a couple of years into the future, and it's something that's going to take effect into the future. Or you could implement that plan on your own, should you choose to try to do so. But you'll know your options, and you'll know which is the best solution that fits you. Something that I can't give to you in this format, but in a more deep dive personal conversation with you can more than welcome to do. So typically we would charge $450 for this session, a nominal amount considering the legacy that we can actually provide and leave behind. But we're going to discount that for those attendees of today's webinar that do book at this consultation, this strategy session. We'll discount that down to $350. Now, you can go ahead and book that by clicking or going to this link here, www.startplanningnow.com, or scanning this QR code that's on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, and you can then get to that same link. Now, I promise at the end of this that you will know what options you have. You will have an actionable plan. And I'm so certain about that I'll give you a 100% money back guarantee on this. The $350 is I will give 100% money back guarantee. If you don't find this session valuable, meeting exactly what you thought it was going to be, we will donate that $350 to a charity of your choosing. Okay, so we're going to make a donation of that money if you do not find that to be helpful. So either way, the charity's getting some money here. Either you're going to implement that plan and the charity's getting listed, or if you don't like the session that we did, we will go ahead and donate that $350 to a charity of your choosing. Again, in the theme of giving, we are also, if you book today, you will get a $10 Starbucks gift card. This option is open to those attending in the live webinar today. You can go ahead and scan that link, the QR code, or go to www.startplanningnow.com. This is a session that is really set to help you decide what the best way to be meaningful and purposeful in the giving that you do. I'm now going to open the floor to the questions and answers, and for those that we'll try to answer as many as we can. But if we do not get to your question today, here's how you can reach us. Okay, here's our address, our email, our phone number. Here's how you can reach us to find out more. We'd be glad to give you more information about this and help you get your meaningful strategy session scheduled. Courtney, do you want to go into the Q&A?
So we'll just go through some of the frequently asked questions. The first question I see here is, can you put multiple charities in the option, such as charitable remainder trust or charitable lead trust?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's not limited to just one charity. It's a great question. Like some of the other options, like we talked about the charitable, so the gift annuity, which had to be only one charity. So it can be structured. It gets a little more complicated, and so I certainly recommend seeing if that is the best fit.
Okay, perfect. And some other questions are, if your family has a private foundation, are you able to use that trust and contribute to your own private foundation?
So yes, you can contribute to your own private foundation. That's really the biggest benefit of the private foundation, is you're creating this foundation to make those charitable distributions too. So that way, then the board or the trustee that you set up in that and set up the governing documents to carry out what the legacy that you want is, they have to follow it, and then can make those donations to the charities of the choosing, or can actually engage in their own charitable activities itself.
Another question I see here is, when you're gifting in a trust or a will, can you detail what it's specifically for, or do the funds just kind of go into a general pool, or is that something that the individual chooses themselves?
So this is a great question. You can certainly put language in your trust and will and those bequests, right? And those provisions in your estate plan that make this gift and make them conditional on certain things, but really the oversight and management of that, especially if the condition is met, and then what happens after that. And the administration of ongoing conditions becomes difficult. And that's where some of these trusts or the private foundation or the donor advised fund can be a better fit to accomplish some of those things.
Okay, so that seems to be the end of the questions. Of course, if you have any more, you can certainly follow up in an email. You have it from registering today, so you can send me an email, and you can of course address them in any upcoming consultation and strategy session regarding some charitable gifting.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you everybody for attending. I hope that you have a great holiday season. And as you're going through the holiday season in that holiday state of mind, think about some of these options that you have to be able to leave a legacy for these organizations and causes that you so dearly support and desire to continue. Thank you.
Thank you.